So here we are at the Thames Goldmine experience. It's just about to open. It's almost 10 AM. Let's get in there and go check this bad boy out. I'm just having a cigarette at the moment, but while I'm out here on the roadside, show you what it looks like from here. But we're about to get in there and go and suss out this experience. So I just got in here and paid my fare and asked the dude if it was alright to record. He said yes, but he's a little bit wary of some things that I record, so why not get everything for you. Just waiting for another group to arrive and I'll join in with them and we'll get the tour.
I'm one for exercising control.
Also known as being bossy.
Good, I like this guy.
He also doesn't walk people forward down the stairs, that's another thing.
I'll just give you a bit of a brief outline about the complex and where it's come from, the origins of it. Then we'll go in the photo room and we'll talk a little bit about Thames. So this complex is run by an incorporated society, the Harrogate Prospectors Association. This started in 1964 and we built a battery, the association built a battery, that little square bit with the rectangular bit with the lean-to gable, that was the original stamper battery. It was built here in 1972. So I joined in 1977, and that was the only building we had on site in 1977.
Really?
So between then and now, we've added all of these buildings and built the big stamper battery. What we did, we took the original 5-stamp unit and we just put it into the big building. So you need to understand firstly that we're a voluntary incorporated society with about 8 active members, most of whom are in their late 60s or early 70s. Right? A lot of our members have got what my president refers to as the OBE. It's not the Order of the British Empire, it's over bloody 80. Alan's 70 this year. So this is quite a significant complex, and it consists of obviously the underground. The underground are Golden Crown origin prospecting tunnels, so they go back to 1868. The stamper battery, 5-header stamp with some process. The boiler house, because we've got an active boiler with a small engine you see there and 2 tangy horizontal stationary engines inside the building, which we fire up about every 6 weeks or so. So the boiler goes, okay, and we use that to power the lower part of the process. So that's a really exciting component of this overall concept, because it's very seldom that you see steam going. Certainly in the North Island and the South Island, a little bit different. So steam's a really significant component. Transformer shed, blacksmith shop, which is a relatively recent acquisition. We've got a couple of blacksmiths on the membership, and the intention of the blacksmith shop is to forge product for here. To have Blacksmithing 101, so it's an education facility, and thirdly to provide additional activities for members, so that's quite significant. The next shed with a light on it is the pattern shed. When we got some of the timber for this building, the big building here, we demolished an old foundry. With that foundry came a lot of patterns, mining related patterns, so they are in there. Toilet, the next one down. The father's building, that's the soil battery, that's 1938, single step, and the land's not renovated, but that's an original building for the site. Coming this way again, there's a little building around the corner that you can't see, which is an old Morgue building extends hospital, which we use for our photo, our geology display. And this building here came from that same foundry that we pulled down. It was the Judd Iron Foundry office and drafting room. So those two buildings, these original period buildings, were transported onto the site by the association. So over that period from 77 through to now, this complex has grown from that single building to all of these things here. And so it's quite a significant achievement. And we're lucky that we've got people that are qualified for steam, boiler attendants and engine drivers. That's a rare commodity these days. And also so we're lucky that we've got blacksmiths as well. So
Did you cover this building here? What was it?
no, this is we picked this building up, literally picked it up with 2 forklifts and drove it half a kilometre from its location down here, up the hill, across the stream and put it here.
What was it?
It was a drafting office, and it was Judd Iron Foundry drafting office and administration building. So that's the origins of this complex. We sit on a mining licence, which was a 40-year term to start with, and has just recently been renewed. So our occupancy right comes from the mining licence. Okay? So this end is owned by the local district council as a heritage reserve, and that end is owned by the Department of Conservation. So we've got dual ownership, which is a bit of a problem.
Both of them will be very easy to deal with.
Well, the curious thing is, yes they are, and that's partly due to the fact that we occupied the site via a mining licence. So back in the day, the original mining licence, this is before the Building Act was made the top act, because everything was now subservient to the Building Act. But back in the day when we got this licence, the Mining Act was the act under which you could do anything. This complex was pretty much done on the basis of the mines inspector saying, yep, that looks good, yep, okay, tick, off you go. When you look at this building, and you and I will go up and have a look at other parts that we don't show the public, you will see that the construction methodology is very original. And you would struggle to know how to build a building like that in today's regime. And when I say today, 25 years ago. And that's because this is done under the Mining Act. And the Mining Act, as I say, the Building Act was subordinate to it. So as long as the mines inspector was happy, we were happy. And it is fantastic because you go in there and you think that is the original stamper battery that was on this site in 1868. It's not. It's been built within 25 years. And the timber, you go, oh, this is an old building because the timber looks old. Well, the timber comes from a foundry, which was established in Thames in 1869. So it's a happy circumstance to find out. The new version of iwi, but you had nothing Matara, nothing Pua, nothing Kananga, and iwi hapi Kuraronga. And so they were established here, very successfully established commercial trading going on. This town area was an area where they grew commodities, fruit and vegetables and livestock, which they took via Waka to commercial Bay and Auckland where they operated trading on the beach and through the auction mechanism. So this area from a pre-European point of view was a very successful establishment for Tana Whenua. It has a very interesting history from a Tana Whenua point of view, but we'll leave them to tell that story. So gold's found in 1867, the goldfield was proclaimed, and this is the upshot. So this is Tuki's Flat here where we are, Tuki's Flat, Grahamstown, Shortland down here, Pana Flat up there, Tarawai further out, Tararoo out this side. This was the area where Māori were growing their commodities, their vegetables. This was a peach orchard, and there was all sorts of agrarian activity going on there as Māori was successfully operating their commodity-based economy. So 1867, the gold field was discovered. This is about 1875, 77-ish. So within the space of, I would say 3 years, but let's be generous and say 5 years, that whole pre-colonial, pre-1867 economy and lifestyle had disappeared. And it had been replaced by this extraordinary conglomeration of business and commercial activity and industrial activity and residential activity. Had we been here at this time, we would have been just in here. This is the Golden Crown battery, this is the Golden Crown site. So this is where we are. Golden Crown Street running in front of us, Owen Street running down here in the main thoroughfare, Brown Street. This is what you would call the CBD back in the day. And of course you can see all the mining activities going on, and it's this real jumble of things happening. So that between the First War of 1867 and 1871, 1872, that happened. So the photographs are here, which you can revisit later on, give you a very good feel for the extraordinary development that has occurred in this area over the space of, let's say, 10 years. So Thames goes from being a very small settled area with probably just a couple of hundred whenua and a number of missionaries. Church Missionary Society established here in Thames 52, okay, in the South Island came online, and then Thames Raining 67, and Vinamuli and Waihi in 1875. So we were the so it starts up there, second year, gold. So this is a volcanic origin goldfield, what we call porphyry goldfield. The range from the tip of the Coromandel Peninsula down to Waihi, or down to Kodong really, Sinai, that's all the same volcanic origin geology. And so you've got gold all the way through to more or less extent. It happens to be localised in Coromandel, in Thames, and Waihi. So once it was discovered up there, that was fine. Geologists used it all the way through. So there was a question of hunting it out.
Especially
It was demolished and re-erected on site. This is 1869. This coding, these wonderful posts in the pool. That's why it looks old. That's why it looks old though. People think this is the original battery site. It's not. There's a little bit of pine. If you look around, you'll see some pine. Yeah. Wonderful. The soil to us, it's all mine painted, or mine multi. Through the cars, you see the lump, and it's beautiful red blade all the way across. Oh, yeah, that's, as I say, that's all in pine multi. Beautiful. What we're going to do is we'll just talk about what happened in this building. So this is the Stamper battery building, and this is the heavy industrial process that the miners use to process their auriferous material, auriferous meaning gold bearing. Okay? So I'll explain the process that we operate today with a sidebar on the old process, which is a little bit different to what we use. So those of you that can see there's some rock piled up over here. This is what we call auriferous stone. Here's an example of it down here. Gold-bearing quartz, auriferous. Quartz is the carrier. Have a look in our geology display later on to see how the gold-bearing quartz gets into the ground and how the gold gets into the quartz. But that's the commodity that we start with, auriferous ore. So in our case, what we do is we just use general crushing stuff. We don't have any gold-bearing ore. So it comes in on an ore pad on the other side of those through the car trees, and we have an ore tramway. So we fill our little mine trucks up, haul them up, with an electric wrench, haul them up there, push them across. Those that can see there's a bridge over here with a little thin television shed on it. So we have a turntable, turn the ore cart, push it across the bridge into the top of the building, disgorge the contents into one of these things here. This is a jaw crusher. So the jaw crusher reduces the footfall size, fits the little golf ball size. Okay? So if you've got the opportunity, I would encourage you to go to the car park, into the car park, just walk up the tramway and come along and have a look at that. And that tramway is an icon for the 9 government tramways that were in the goldfield. Very significant utility infrastructure built by the government. So back to the story. So our football size rocks come into the jaw crusher. The jaw crusher reduces them to little golf ball size. Now, quartz is the 5th lowest naturally occurring substance that we know, so it's very difficult to deal with. But back in the day, they didn't use a jaw crusher, they used a hammer, a spalling hammer, 12-pound spalling hammer. Now, quartz as a substance it has integrity. It doesn't have weak it doesn't have seams, it doesn't have points that you could use to fracture and break the rock. So it's really, really difficult to deal with. And that's tough when the only option you have for breaking it up and reducing it in size is the hammer. That's why we don't do that, obviously, we're all too old and too lazy for that. That's why we've got the jaw crusher. So that happens anyway. So the football size bits go down to golf ball size bits. They go into the ore hopper. So now we'll go back inside. Don't you love this? Out, back in, out, back in. Oh. I wish you would be a bit more efficient with a bloody waste of time with this backwards and forwards. So here's our ore hopper. You come in the big wooden structure that has a capacity of 100 tons of ore. So those 5 hammers lift up, drop down, they crush the rock to a sand. So the rocks come from underground about that size. It's gone into the jaw crusher and come out that size, it's gone into the hopper. It goes through the battery of stamps and comes out that size. So you can see the reduction. It's quite significant. And the reason for that, of course, is that the gold is very, very fine and it's randomly and irregularly distributed throughout the volume of the rock. So you have to literally break the rock case off each grain of gold and silver. That's what that does. So lift up, drop down, lift up, drop down, lift up, drop down, and the result is a sand. A very fine sand. It varies from a pepper-sized grain to a salt-sized sand grain. And in the meantime, of course, it's releasing the gold and silver. Now, I want you to come a little bit further around because I want you to look at this photograph here. Layout of a battery. So you've got 5, 10, 15, 20 stamps. That's the average number of stamps in a battery. 20. Remember, we've got how many? Who was listening? 5. Well done. Oh, the old people beat the young people. Well done. What happens back in the day is we use the mercury amalgamation process, okay? We don't use it today because everybody goes, oh, mercury is dangerous, we're going to die, oh no, we can't use mercury. They don't normally have that high-pitched voice. Where's our mercury gone, Jay?
It might be on the table, is it?
Oh, yeah, here it is.
So, yeah.
Pass us around. No, you're not going to die, it's okay. It's a glass bottle, so I encourage you not to drop it. So mercury has a unique property which is that it likes gold and silver, okay? It has an affinity for gold and silver. So mercury will stick to gold and silver. Mercury is the only metal which at room temperature is a liquid with the mercury. That comes from an ore called cinnabar. And cinnabar's got a really neat property. If you put a piece of cinnabar on your shovel and you put the shovel on the embers of your fire, the heat will reduce the cinnabar and turn it into liquid mercury. So the rock turns into a liquid with the application of a little bit of heat. Quite neat. Goes from red to silver. Yeah, that won't reconstitute your silver enough. So mercury likes gold and silver. So if we come back to this photograph, those of you that can see it, after the stamps, you've got amalgam plate tables. The amalgam plate table is it's a wooden table with a metal sheet on it. And the sheet is what we call Muntz metal. It's copper and zinc, 60% copper, 40% zinc. And it's copper and zinc because mercury also likes copper. It will stick to copper. So we smear the mercury on the top of the amalgam plate, Muntz metal. So there's a layer of mercury, so those sheets, those steps, each step on the amalgam plate table has got this mercury, this film of mercury. So when the crushed material comes from the front of the mortar box, any gold which is heavy and sits on the metal plate runs across, driven across by the water. The gold is exposed to the mercury captures the gold and forms amalgam. Okay? So you older folks will know where amalgam comes from, what amalgam is. Teeth, okay? So when people say, mercury, oh, you're going to die! Nearly every tooth in my mouth has got an amalgam filling because I don't like the sweets when I'm drunk. Mercury is also a what? Oh, come on, old people, don't forget it. Mercury is a what? Yeah, but what is it in terms of its toxicity? It's
Poison, toxic.
yeah, what kind? Think of mad as a hatter. It's a neurotoxin. Okay, so while it doesn't kill you, it might have a neurological effect. Mad as a hatter, that's where that comes
Is that what's wrong with
Never would have guessed.
You cheeky cunt! What are you saying? You're saying it's had an effect on me. That may well be. Yeah. So the mercury has amalgamated with the gold and silver to form amalgam on those tables. The residue then goes across these blanket tables. The blanket tables are often either a woolly fibre blanket or they are corduroy. You remember back in the day when we had the corduroy trousers? Now we have jeans and they're all ripped and they're stained and anyway.
Did that table shape like a riffle table?
So, no, it didn't.
Okay.
So, the flow is down this way, the grain of the fabric is at 90 degrees to the direction, so the heavy mineral, the gold, the silver, the other iron, copper, lead, zinc, whatever, gets caught in the fabric. So those blankets are washed regularly.
So where's the water?
The water comes into the mortar box, flows across the amalgam plate table and flows across. Okay. So the heavy minerals are caught in the fibre of the blanket. Think of Joseph and his amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat and the lamb's fleece. So there's gold and silver caught up in the blankets are washed. The blanketings are then put in, that's what the material that comes from the washing of the blankets is called. That is then put into a boudin. The residue off the tables just washes away up to waste. Okay? So the blankets are then put, the blanketings are put into a device called a boudin, which is mechanised gold. That's what they did back in the day. So you've got three recovery points. The amalgam plate table, the blankets and the boudin. Very simple. Captures about 50-55% of the gold on a good day. We don't do that because we don't use gold very well in the process. Yeah, okay, heavy things at the top, light things at the bottom, that's not what you expect. And the reason for that, of course, is that you've got heavy particles sitting on a surface. Those heavy particles are more difficult for the water to move across that surface. So the effect is that you have the metal mineral here. That's the metal mineral that this crushing stuff contains, and that's iron and copper in the form of pyrites generally, maybe a little bit of a thing called magnetite. If there was gold, it would be at the very top of that bronzy coloured band. So that's the metal mineral. The iron, lead, copper, zinc, tin, gold, silver. Gold and silver being the heaviest elements at the top. There's a second grade called middlings, not very evident at the moment. Back in the day we would capture the middlings and we would reprocess them. So in our operation what that means is it would come off the long side of the table, down this launder, into a ball mill, a horizontal cylinder rotating with balls in it, which grinds the material up, releasing the gold and silver, and that material comes back onto the second table. So it's the same thing. The tailings, which is, you'll see when the table's going down here, that's the waste. It goes off the long side of the table, down the drain, and back in the day it would just go out to sea. There to wash mum and dad's car, he paid a couple of pennies. So he gathers all of the mercury in the amalgam out of the pan, puts it into the cloth, folds the cloth around it, and then just squeezes. So he expresses the free mercury through the cloth, goes back into the pan, and the gold and the silver remains behind. I beg your pardon, the amalgam remains behind. Because it's too thick to pass through the pools all
Done by hand.
right?
Or just done by subscribe.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So what do you think one of the vocational problems is with that?
No,
No, mercury. Yeah. Back in the day, there's some really interesting anecdotes in the paper. A long-serving amalgamator could take a copper penny out of his pocket, put it into his hand, rub the two palms together, voila, silver coin. So the copper draws the mercury out of the skin. It doesn't often die of mercury poisoning. So we've got amalgam here. So I'll just get some amalgam. So that's your amalgam. So remember the amalgam in your teeth? Slightly different. This is mercury, gold, silver. The amalgam in your teeth is different, but that's basically what we're talking about, silver plate. So all we've done is we've removed that free mercury. So now we can get the gold and silver. So when we've got enough of this, we put it into a crucible, put some clay around here, screw it down nice and tight, heat this up. So what do you think happens when we heat this up? So again? Yeah, okay, so the mercury's got the lowest boiling point, so it turns into gas rises up the exhaust pipe, gets to the water jacketed section. What happens to the gas when it gets there? Condenses because of the temperature, comes out the end of the tube as a liquid. End of the tube underwater, so you don't breathe the vapour because the vapour is quite dangerous. So we've recovered the mercury, we put that back into the pan, so what remains behind? Gold and silver. What we call an electron. The gold and silver are both very similar elements, and so they remain together. They're not separate, they don't separate out. So when we've got enough of that, we put it into a crucible. We heat the crucible with a little flux to remove the impurity, typically borax or litho, so the two main fluxes. But what they also used to do occasionally is they'd go down to the beach and they'd get oyster shells and they'd grind those up. What's oyster shell? So it's a flux, depending on the likely impurity. So you put some flux in there, heat it up in the furnace, flux draws the impurity to the surface, discard that, pour the gold and silver into the mould, put that mould there, and you end up with something that will look like that. That's what shapes a bullion bar. Okay, it's a bullion bar or a gold bar, because it's a gold alloy, gold and silver. So if that was from Thames, and it was real, I'm sure you appreciate that name. Not real! Is it real? Okay. Because I can see some of the looks in your eyes. Oh, how big it's going now. I see it. Nice to us. Red bar. What's gold at the moment? 4,500 an ounce or something else? Yeah, so that would be worth a lot of money. But that's the commodity that's the process produces bullion, gold and silver. That would typically be about 18 carat in gems. So pure gold is what? 22. Nearly. Can you pass it on 22? I've got 22 do I hear? 24 carat of pure gold. That's on average 18 to 26. Okay, so the Golden Crown mine where we are at the moment produces 92,000 ounces of bullion at average 18 carat.
What, this bag, you do now?
No, that's what we did. No, if we did that now, I wouldn't be doing this. No, that's back in the day. There was no gold produced in the Thames. We occupy the site for a mining license, and if there was gold here, we would be drinking gold. There's no gold to find. So that's the production, that's the commodity that's produced. That goes off to the bank. In this case, you'll see it's got NBNZ, National Bank of New Zealand, the premier bank in Thames, the Bank of New Zealand. They processed 50 of the 70 tonnes of gold that was produced by the gold field. They assay that bar to determine its value. They buy it off us, and then they send it to the mint in Australia where it would be refined to separate the gold from the silver. So the commodity here, bullion, we don't need to do any work with it. We don't need to separate the gold from the silver. There's no pecuniary advantage in doing so. It's the bank that wants the pure gold. Why does it want the pure gold? What was our economy based on? Gold in the bank. You could only have as much gold circulating in an economy as you had gold in the bank back in the day. So they wanted gold, they didn't want bullion. So there were, depending on what book you're in, between 47 and 50 cent factories in the Thames area. And between about 1869 and maybe 1875, 77, they were going for 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. So in here in 5, try and imagine what 20 would be like. And then try and imagine what, let's say 50,000 stamps in the greater area would have been like. From your 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. And two, just understand, just think about the topography here. You've got these steep-sided short duration or short length valleys. So they act as amplifiers. So the noise that's being produced by the valleys is amplified down into this area. And there was an article in one of the local papers back in the day that said when the wind was from the southeast, you could hear the wind of the Gulf Coast. Oh, I was struggling with it a little bit. That's what I said. Happens never lied, is it? Right, it starts. Now, earmuffs here if you want to wear the earmuffs. Could I encourage you not to wear them to start with? Yeah. The very thing I want you to hear is the noise. And if you put earmuffs on, necessarily it's muffled. And that absolutely ruins the effect. You're not going to go deaf, seriously? They shouldn't ping your hearing aids. Put them on a little way through. So we'll start the process up. We start the water first. The water will flood the tables, fill the ball mill, and fill the mortar box. When that happens, then we'll start the lower mill. And when the mill's up to speed, we'll start the stamp. So it's in 3 phases. And remember, we're using electricity. Back in the day, of course, it would have been a steam engine or a Pelton wheel. We'll just wait for the water to flood the tables. Now we'll start the milk. those of you that are near the table can see the bright grassy line indicating the mineral concentrate. No gold. Unfortunately, there's gold. Oh yeah. Now the only gold will get out of your pocket. Right, now all of those as part of the grip that go on the ground. Thank you, great demo. Oh, yeah, no, fantastic. Get out of the way. So we're going to go and get a helmet. Oh yeah. So I can't take all of your current underground, I can only take the Otago group and yourself. Yeah. So the people... That's good. There we go.
Anything else in the
Pressure on, nice no fun if you can amble along. It might seem like it. No, yeah, I don't know. 200 metres. One set of stairs. It's not far. You've got plenty of friends, they'll hurry you along. So what we're going through our Foxwood drive, driven by the Golden Tramway. I did about 6 or 7 of these tunnels into this hillside, searching for the gold-bearing quartz. A point of nomenclature: you're not going through a shaft. Right? When you walk through a shaft, you go. Shaft is in the air because of the drive of the tunnel. So when you get suddenly follow your fingers out of the drive on it through, don't pull the back down through the shaft. This isn't it. Well, technically the adit's the opening, the portal. But you can use the word edit, it's interchangeable.
I learned it yesterday.
Did you? Yeah. So tunnel is the easiest, but drive is probably the next drop down. As I say, edit is used in a number of ways. One being portal or opening as opposed to drive. But to say to demonstrate the technical concept, oh, we went through the edit, knowing that no one else will know what it's talking about. So these are prospecting. Health and safety, it's uneven along its length and across the cliff. It's narrow, it's low, it's dark, there are no weathers, no rats, no bats. There's one set of stairs, and it's a bit wet at the moment, it's not too bad though. But one of the things that we're trying to achieve here, and this is where the name Goldmine experience comes from, is we want you to begin to understand the working conditions in which the mine is located. So if we made this, completely illuminated with lovely big neon strip lighting all through it, and fantastic, it's a little bit of that is countdown production. We want you to begin to understand the conditions under which the mine is located. Okay, so last person, and just let the gate swing behind, swing close behind us. This one stop up here. So last person at the gate 22. Okay, so one of the first things we see, of course, is the tunnel dimensions are quite tight. And this is a little bit about sort of ethnicity, I guess, of the early miners. A lot of those early Thames miners were from England, from the UK, I should say, from England specifically, but from Cornwall more specifically, where they were tin miners. And of course, the tin miner, he was a professional miner, but he was also quite stocky and short. So the dimensions of Thames tunnels tend to reflect that ethnic origin, the Cornishman. They're low and they're narrow. You don't dig a tunnel any bigger than it needs to be. It's just a waste. You'll see when you get up to the lights particularly, or you can shine your cell phone light, the tunnels are very smooth, they're well finished, and they're very consistent in even dimensions. This is the hallmark of the professional Cornish tin miner. Okay? This has got a square cut top. Normally I've got to say they're arched, so that the high point is in the centre. Using hand tools, a pick and a shovel, a hammer and a small steel chisel called a gad, and a wheelbarrow to remove the mullock out to waste, they would progress these tunnels at a rate of about 3 to 5 feet a day, depending. And that was considered quite good. And the reason it's quite good is because this rock is what they refer to as kindly country. Kindly because it's relatively soft and easy to dig through, but hard enough to hold itself up without the requirement for substantial timbering. And so there's very little there's no original timber in these tunnels. When I came here in 1978, there was no timber. We've done some excavation, put the timber in. So this is an indicator of the stability of the ground. So remember too that this is prospecting. These fellows are looking for something. They don't know whether it's actually here, it's gold-bearing quartz. They know it's in the goldfield. They don't know that it's in their 2-acre claim specifically. Now this tunnel is about them trying to find out. Remember too that this is not being funded by anybody. This is them digging this and doing this work from their savings. Miner comes to the gold field with some savings. If he's lucky, he can hit the area, mark it out, buys his miner's right for £1, and then commences to dig holes all over the place in the hope that he might find some gold in the quartz. And it is literally a hope. He may not. If they're lucky, it's not even pretty close. We'll just gather up here where we are. Okay, so they've come straight in, more or less. They've gone off round behind me out to the north and to the east. They go out to the boundary of the claim, if they can, depending on how big the claim is. Again, prospecting. They want to examine their claim area. So they can only work within the boundaries. Squash up a little bit more, folks. That's the story. They can only work within the claim boundaries to any depth. So they would prospect out to the boundaries of the claim, if that was practical to do. So they've done that. The fellow here is Robert. Robert's our trucker. This is a function of mining the truck, the ore cart running on steel wheels and wooden rails. Okay, when you're mining, you're producing gold as a result of your labours, you've got more money and you can afford to use more efficient devices, i.e. a cart and rails. Our boys in 1868 would be using wheelbarrows to remove the mullock, not a mine cart. This is expensive, this infrastructure, and if you're prospecting, funding this operation from your savings, you do not waste the money on this kind of infrastructure, however efficient it might be, because you've got no guarantee of any return. It's not until you discover reliable gold that you would then invest in efficiency devices like this cart. So, Robert, the trucker, one of only 3 typically that you would see, 3 individuals working on the ground, and you can appreciate why that is, because we are in a what? A long line, okay? We're digging a tunnel. You haven't got room for lots and lots of people, so you're working in a linear configuration, as I say. So you've got Robert, he's going backwards and forwards with his wheelbarrow and his mullock. The waste from the mine is called mullock, it's bigger. The waste from the process is called tailings. Okay? Semantics perhaps, but it makes you look even more impressive because you have the technicalities right when you're talking to people.
You see lots of tailings at home.
So that's Robert and the trucker. So it's important just to understand that we are prospecting, and this has been done by the Golden Crown miners, and they're doing this from their savings. They're not being paid to do this. Okay? You need to start to think about that. Okay, let's look at the tension that exists within this gamble, because it's a very substantial gamble. They paid £1. There were 6 Golden Crown miners to start with. So that's, they each paid £1, and they've got 2 acres. They had an entitlement to 1/3 of an acre. So 6 times 1/3 is 2 acres. And they start to dig tunnels, okay? And they might discover gold, they might not. They don't know. They don't bring lots of savings. Miners typically don't have lots of savings in their back pocket. So there's a real gamble going on here, and they have to get to a point where either they discover gold and they can continue to finance their operation from that discovery, or they have to make the decision to abandon the claim. Okay? Now, anecdotally, we see in the papers lots of examples of miners discontinuing their operations only for the subsequent miner to find the gold, just a few feet further on. The papers are littered with those kind of examples, and that's just the luck of it. All right, no different today to then. Right, so we're going to move around.
So these groups of 3,
Yep.
let's say they find some gold-bearing quartz.
Yep.
Now, do the Stamper battery, do they contract press?
Well, no, initially they didn't have a battery. That's one of the problems on the goldfield. There was insufficient capital available to actually build the infrastructure that they needed to process the ore. So initially, from 67 through to sort of mid-68, you got thousands of tons of gold-bearing ore accumulating because there was insufficient processing capacity to deal with it all. But the answer to your question is this: in 1869, when they formed the Golden Crown Company, they formed that company to do 2 things. One, to make the prospecting and subsequent exploitation more efficient, i.e. a bit more planned, using these sort of devices, but also to build their own stamper battery. Not every miner or every claim had their own stamper battery. And you alluded to that in your question. There were a number of public batteries. So if you didn't have the wherewithal to develop your own battery, or you didn't want to, you would have to cart your ore to a public battery. And that's why I said there were 9 government-funded tramways in Thames, because they needed tramways up the valleys, in addition to aerial ropeways, to allow miners to get their quartz down to the public battery, wherever that might be. And it typically was on the flat rather than up in the valleys. Okay? And so it becomes quite complicated, and it also becomes quite expensive, whether you have your own battery or not. This is a relatively high stakes operation in the sense that there's huge capital outlays required. That's why they formed companies. Companies was a mechanism for the operation of the goldfield. Not big companies. In 1869 there were 350 that we know of, small companies. Okay, the Golden Crown had 192 shareholders. No, it didn't. It had 28 shareholders, I'm sorry, with £192,000 nominal capital, not paid up. And there were 350 companies like that. And in addition to that, there were at least that many informal partnerships. So we've got 700 entities in 1869 operating on the goldfield, little companies. And today we use the term mums and dad investors, and that's not so much the case then, because it's more the capitalist and the businessman. But there were lots of ordinary Joes that were investing money in the hope of finding a good return.
So the use of the...
Want to go to the toilet? Where did they go?
They shit in a tin. We'll talk about that in a second. It's a good question.
You got your
You could laugh. Don't
got the
laugh.
shit tin round the corner to have a look at. You can have a go if you like.
Test it out. One of us in holes.
Lowering tone.
I'm lowering the field trip.
Yeah. Well, it's a great time.
Where you go? Keep up.
No, well, I'd better go behind you because
We're staying with you,
So, if you didn't Tom the miner, Tom's illustrating the use of the hand tool, the pick and the shovel, and the hammer and the chisel.
wonder where they go.
So this is where
This is all new. Well, the timber, we put the timber in because we created this little gathering space so that we can do the interpretation.
the actual...
So what the miners were doing, they were prospecting, okay? They hadn't found anything up until this point, all right? Now remember we said they do 3 to 5 feet a day. There's our 3 to 5 feet from the fence to the face behind Tom the miner. And if you, those of you that can see, there's 2 little brown diagonal lines going from top left to bottom right. Okay, that's a quartz vein, what we call a stringer. It has no value, but that's what they found. So they've come this way, found it because it's running at 90 degrees to the direction that they're driving, and then they've gone that way. They've very quickly discovered, oh, we're not going to waste our time doing this, there's no value in it. But you can see those 2 diagonal lines, that's the quartz vein. Now that's what they're looking for, because the gold and the silver only occurs in the quartz, not in the andesite, either side of it. So that's what they're looking for. The quartz is much harder than the andesite. So while it's hard to find, it's very easy to identify once you've found it.
If they didn't find anything,
And finally, they decided they were going to walk away from it, having come back and all the rest of it. Can anyone play around with looking for gold again? And that
Well, no, you've got
area?
another group or another whatever has got to come along and mark the claim. Peg the claim. They've got to get their miners right first.
Yeah.
Then they go, oh, the Golden Crown boys, they've all walked off because there was nothing there. They swoop in, and if they're quick, they take the same area and they say to the warden, oh, we're going to pick up the Golden Crown. We've got our miners right. After 6 of us, we're picking up that ground.
There's a risk because they've already been proven.
Well, not proven. No, not proven. No. All they've done is they've examined to their limit of to the extent of their resources.
Yeah.
And when, as it happens, the Golden Crown, there was successful gold here. They didn't do that. But yeah, if I'm working away here and I run out of money and I haven't found gold, I abandon the claim. The warden knows that, and it's up for grabs.
That's what I meant.
And it might be that no one comes here because, Bill tried the Golden Crown, there was successful gold here. They didn't do that. But yeah, if I'm working away here and I run out of money and I haven't found gold, I abandon the claim. The warden knows that, and it's up for grabs.
That's what I meant.
And it might be that no one comes here because, Bill tried, Fred tried, John tried, for the last 3 years I've been trying, I've never found anything.
They have to get certified or official.
They've got to have their miners right, and
yeah.
they've got to register the claim.
Register.
And obviously the ground can't be claimed by anybody else. Yeah. So it's very much a lottery. So Tom, he's our miner. So he's our second individual. So you've got the trucker going backwards and forwards. You've got Tom the miner, and the third individual is the labourer. Okay, unnamed at this stage. So he's just keeping the area of the floor clear for Tom and loading the truck. Typically, miners would work for as long as they could do when they're self-employed, but when they were working for the companies, the Golden Crown, no different from any other, would have a 12-hour shift typically. And so this work is difficult for one individual to do, i.e. this job at the face, for 12 hours, so the 3 individuals would probably turn about. Even the trucker's job is difficult. Imagine a wheelbarrow, that's particularly problematic, but even with an ore cart on rails, it's problematic because the trucker doesn't have much lighting. That's the standard battery. If any lighting. The miner works by the light of candles, 2 or 3 candles. Candles don't provide a great deal of light, so the work is really difficult, quite dangerous.
And they'll be breathing dust.
We'll get into that in a second. Okay? Just understand, he's using hammers and chisels, and picks and shovels. Yeah, don't interject. Right? Bloody old folks, you think you know every bloody thing? No? Only teasing. Yeah. Okay, so we've got hammer and chisel. The light from the candle, 3 candles generally, isn't very great. He has to make certain that hammer face hits that chisel every time. Not most times, not sometimes, not 90% of the time. Because if it doesn't, if he has a glancing blow and hits his wrist, he becomes injured. He might not be able to work. Okay? He doesn't have an income stream that's an alternative. He doesn't have ACC or the social welfare or private
That's
insurance.
a small end on that hammer.
Yes, it's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. He has to focus every moment of his working day.
Yeah.
Think about this. What's the other fatigue that he suffers greatly from?
Mental.
No, not so much stress, although that is a mental fatigue. He's very mentally fatigued. This is just labouring, but this has to hit that every time. He has to focus. Think about this. He has to think about what he's doing for every moment of his working day. Think about the modern work now. 10 minutes, have a working break. Have a 5-minute break. You're on a computer for half an hour, have a 5-minute break. We've got smokers, we've got lunches, we've got health and safety. You name it, every kind of break. He doesn't have that luxury. He has 2 breaks during the day. Okay? One for a morning smoker and one for a lunch. And the lady said, wherever you are, where does he go wee-wees? He shits in a tin. Think about it. He's 300 feet down and 200 feet underground. He's not going to go to the surface and want to push. Not to be crude about it, but he's going to have a little receptacle. He's going to walk away somewhere, a wee way from where he's working, and he's going to use that tin for the purposes for which it was intended, underground. And then he's going to carry that tin out. Now, that's fine, but just think about that reality. He has 2 breaks. He will bring his crib, which is his lunch, and it might be a single sandwich, big, thick sandwich, big, crusty sandwich. If he's a Cornishman, he might, if he's lucky, he might have a Cornish pasty. And he'll have tea. But he'll have cold tea, and it'll be black tea, and it'll be highly sweetened. He won't have milk. Why does he not have milk, do you think?
Oh.
No. Bad answer.
No cows.
Yeah, no cows. There's no shop. He doesn't go, I'll just get some cow, run down to the dairy. He doesn't have a supermarket. He's living in a forest up in the hills. He doesn't have any of the sort of thing, the modern convenience that we think of today. So he'll have black tea okay, that's highly sweetened. He'll have that one sandwich, big, thick, crusty sandwich, and it might have cheese, or it could have pickle, it might have meat, unlikely, but it might do. And so that's what he'll have for his lunch. So he'll have a morning break, he'll have half his cold tea, and it's cold. Why is it cold? Doesn't have a
Heater.
thermos. It doesn't have a thermos. Can you imagine that? Cold tea and it's black. Oh, good heavens, that's the end of the
I
world.
think it's jolly welcome.
And he'll eat a bit of a sandwich. Not all of it, a bit of it. And he won't linger. Why won't he linger? Because underground it is cold and it's wet. Not so much today where we are because we're close to the surface. It's cold and it's wet. He's wearing wool. He's working physically very hard, so he is sweating profusely. He is literally soaked. His clothing is soaked. So when he stops in those cold and damp conditions, what happens? He chills very quickly. He starts to shake. Believe me, I've been in that situation just to see whether what I'm telling you is true. You chill quickly. So you don't linger. Today we would say, well, let's see if we can take the bosses away. We'll make the smoko 15 minutes because the boss isn't here. Or we'll make lunch, 45 minutes, not 30 because the boss is not here. So he'll have the minimum break. Lunchtime is the same. He won't linger because the longer he's here, the colder he gets. He'll get back to work quite quickly. All right? And that's a physical reality that he has to endure underground. Now, I've been in tunnels where in the wintertime, in Thames, quite deep underground, where you've got water pouring through the ground and there's streams of water running down. It's really, really awkward. So that whole break scenario and that other number ones and number twos, that's a reality that you want to think about. It's not particularly pleasant. So that's the minor. Ventilation, no ventilation apart from natural ventilation. So the air is what he refers to as dead air. It's really, really unpleasant. The candles are producing fumes and consuming oxygen. He's producing carbon dioxide and consuming oxygen. No ventilation means it doesn't change around. You said dust earlier on, lots of quartz dust. They use explosives to shatter the quartz because it's too hard to use the handles on. Very fine residue big residue of fine, hard, sharp, angular dust. He's working hard, he's sucking the air in, that dust comes in, it lacerates the airways, it embeds in the lungs. Pneumoconiosis, minus titis, minus lung, he calls it, like asbestosis. Really, really difficult condition.
Did any ever think to put a mask over their faces or anything? Too difficult?
No, not at all. Think about the reality. When you breathe out, what are you breathing out? You're breathing out carbon dioxide and come on, quick, and moisture. You've got a cotton handkerchief over your mouth. So what's happening to the cotton handkerchief? It's good. You're sucking in dust. Okay, so what does the dust turn into when it hits the mask?
Mud.
You can't breathe in because you've got this dust mask now, which is covered in mud. So no, they don't. It's not that they don't think about it. They're very alive to the ways that they can mitigate the hazard, but they don't have the technology.
That's right.
One of the reasons that men often had, there were several reasons, but big bushy mows and beards, apart from the fact they couldn't go, I'll just with my electric shave roll, just run the hot water, lather, shave. You're living in a forest up in the bush, not that simple.
Yeah.
But one of the other reasons for that facial hair was it's a protection against dust to some very limited extent.
Yes.
Now this is gross. Men often have very hairy ears and quite hairy noses. Think about the standards today, we couldn't tolerate it. Blah. We like to be completely hairless. Sorry, that's just a modern commentary on the way we live today. But that's the body's response to a dust-laden atmosphere. So if you're working underground for a long period of time, the body does evolve, it does adapt. It seeks to filter out that dust to some extent. Okay? Really interesting, do some Google work on that. I didn't believe it, but no, it's true though. So that's one of the interesting facets of the only piece of safety kit he's got, cotton skull cap, very useful. No helmet, no glasses, no muffs, no masks, no gloves, no steel safety boots. He doesn't have a high-vis vest. He doesn't have special trousers. Doesn't have a 462-page manual for health and safety in the office. Has none of it. But is he safe? No. Yes! Of course he is. Why is he safe? Because he carries safety right here. Front of consciousness. He knows if he mucks up, he could be killed or injured. If he's killed or injured, he can't provide an income for his family. Back in the day, in Victorian times, providing an income for your family was really, really important. Okay? Back in the day, men did the work. They were the breadwinner, literally. Women did other equally important and equally as difficult work, but in the home. All right? Assuming he's married. He has an imperative which keeps him working safe, which is the need to generate income. Okay? Things were quite different back in the day, and we need to think about that to understand how far we've come, advanced or not. So he's a very safe worker. Statistically, yes, there were people killed and injured, but statistically, as I say, relatively speaking, not that many. Okay? So he's what we would do. We would say today, by today's standards, he's a safe worker. Anyway, enough of that. Remember, at this stage, he's working from savings. He's not being paid. It's not until 1869 when the company's formed they've got some shareholding capital they can afford to pay people. We're ready to go, everyone. Here we go. Come this way. Okay, you see the stains on the roof and the walls. That's the iron bisulfide, the iron pyrite oxidising, rusting. Iron bisulfide is one of the prevalent minerals. Remember, volcanic origin gold was base metal sulfide is lots of iron, copper, lead, zinc. Right on, one head, 1 feet. Quite another against the wall with 12 stains.
I think I'll go in. I think I'll go in.
I think we're probably over halfway.
You reckon?
Yeah.
We got the fuse to go to come and take off onto like the dining room and we don't have the capacity to do that, and we talk about the so we got the fuse. And one of the things that I want you to do, apart from the test and come up with fuse, is to observe the vertical interval between the two tunnels. And the distance that separates the two tunnels. Have a look at that. I'm going to ask somebody, what was that you do? And if you get the answer correct, you have to tell.
No, you're right.
No, that's good.
Good. Excellent. Well, we don't need to come back down, so.
This is the exception, this place, I mean, normally you would expect that there would be an outer restricted component, but it should, apart from the earthquake, and if it was to be earthquake, no, it's going to be earthquake, like it was in you can't avoid this catastrophic but apart from that, there's no evidence from this
So I'm at the end of the pack, at the end of the group, back of the group. Can't quite make out what the dude is saying up the front. It's just a bit of a muffled rumble at the moment. And not sure how much longer we're going to be underground in the mine, but this is the experience anyway. It's quite difficult to stand up properly. We'll carry on. Good thing we got these hard hats on.
My beard got stuck to the wall.
He's the major miner.
Another picture up there. Yes, yes, yeah.
I moved too soon.
All good.
Let's see what we get in there. Turn it into a video.
Am I late? Am I late?
No, I think I'll be right. I'll just let it do that job.
And here we are to the exit, back to the there we go. Alright, so. Okay, look at this.
Everything is awesome, nothing is awesome.
Wow, that was awesome. Thanks.
Oh look, I touched him without his permission. I'm sorry, can I strangle you? Right.
Go down.
Sweet, so we are going somewhere now where I am not allowed to record, I've just been told, so I am going to stop recording and join this group, and I'll get back to you all later. Back to recording now. I'm told that they used to haul, actually just a couple of weeks ago, from here all the way to the top. And I don't know if you can quite make it count. There's the little winch system that they got there to haul the carts up to the top and then across to back across up to the building there, into the hopper, and get it all done. And that's the experience. So.
Thank you for coming out. I appreciate the fact that some of you are brave enough to want to come up here and look at that. 20 minutes.
No, only about 6 of us. I'm getting in the car. I'm just waiting to.
Awesome. Well, that's the end of the tour. I shared as much as I could with you. If you want to come and check it out yourselves, do so. Thames. Russell, awesome guide. Awesome guide. But don't use the word awesome. If everything's awesome, nothing is. So just notice that up there too. Hold on. If you find somebody to have a feed, I think. We'll catch you in the next one.